Welcome to the Dawn Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And I'm excited again to present my next guest. His name is Jeffrey Marks, and he is an attorney with Busse and Busse Law Firm. And today, Jeff is going to talk about a subject that some people may need to consider, especially now that we're in this environment that of just COVID and unrest, and our economy is just taking a serious blow that is affecting a lot of people's income. And yes, there are programs out here, that will help some, but not everybody. So it's a good, by having Jeffrey on today, he can talk about some options. And the topic today is going to be about short sale. But let me tell you a little bit about Jeffrey Marks. Jeffrey has been in real estate, is a real estate attorney. And he has given 100 presentations to realtors throughout Chicago, and he's a highly sought after speaker. So I am grateful that he is on my show today, and we're going to talk about short sale and what that could mean for some of you who may need to consider it. So Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise. I feel very grateful because I see that you do a lot of speaking when it comes to realtors. And so I appreciate that because oftentimes we are navigating and we need expertise as yourself. Thank you for coming to the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate being here. Thank you.
Yes, and so let's talk a little bit about short sale. What exactly is short sale? Is that something that, let's say, I purchased my home, let's say 10 years ago, and now I see that it's not worth what it was when I first bought it. I'm not financially struggling or anything, but I do want to sell my house. So is short selling an option for me?
Well, short selling is an option for anybody. A short sale means it's a regular sale of your house that you're selling for less than what you owe your creditors. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you owe $300,000 to your creditors, and by creditors I mean the lien holders on your property. So that would be whoever's holding your mortgage or mortgages. Okay. So again, let's just make up a number. I think my example is 300,000. So let's say you owe $300,000, but because of the market, your house is only worth $250,000. That means that when you sell your house, you either have to bring the $50,000 that's missing, to the closing table, which most people can't do, or you go through a short sale. And a short sale is a negotiated exit out of your property. So that means that the banks are agreeing to release their liens for less than what they're owed and allowing you to sell your property and move on. Typically with the amount that's the difference, the amount that is owed that you're not paying being forgiven by the banks. It's called a waived deficiency. That's not always the case, but that's typically the case. And so that's what a typical short sale would be defined as.
Now, let's say I'm speaking for, someone who's at home thinking about short sale. Would I, if the banks allow me to do a short sale, do I have to worry about years from now them ever coming back and say, hey, your income has increased, you're not in the same situation as you was before, I want my money? So is that something that I have to be concerned about?
Sometimes, but most of the time, no. So as part of the short sale process, we negotiate with the bank. So me as your attorney, right, would be negotiating with the bank to release the lien. Mm-hmm. That's a very complicated and long process where we explain to the bank. It's almost like, I guess the best example would be like applying for a mortgage, right? When you apply for a mortgage, you have to give them all your financials and all your income information, your tax returns, and letters of explanation for credit checks and things like that. You're doing that in reverse. You're in essence unapplying for a mortgage. So you're providing all that same information, but this time we're facilitating the transaction as your attorneys. You don't deal with the banks directly. Anyway, so the banks, after they review all of those, and they review what they call a letter of hardship, where you explain why you're in a situation and have to sell your house, which would, give them a loss while you're doing so. They review that, and they look at your income, and they look at all of that. And then at that time, if they go ahead and approve the short sale, they'll let us know if they're going to approve it and waive the deficiency, which means waive the amount that they're owed in excess of what they're being paid. So let's go back to that example of the you owe $300,000, but you're selling your house for $250,000. So we negotiate with the bank. We get all of the information that they require for the homeowner to show what their financial stress is at the moment and why they have to sell their house and why the bank should agree to take it as a loss. And after the bank looks at all that and says, you know what, we're going to agree, we're going to let them do a short sale in the situation, the bank will say, and in this case, we agree to waive our deficiency. So this $50,000 that's owed to us, we're going to go ahead and waive that. That means it's never going to come back. It's forgiven debt. So no, the bank can never come back for that. However, not all short sale situations work that way. Yes. Sometimes the banks will say, you know what, we're not going to waive the deficiency. So yes, we'll allow you to sell your house, but you'll still owe us this $50,000. And then it's going to be the customer's responsibility to negotiate how that $50,000 is going to be paid to the bank. Sometimes they want it all at once. Sometimes they could file a lawsuit. Sometimes they'll never try to collect it. Sometimes they want a little bit at a time. Some banks, it's very uncommon though for a bank to not waive a deficiency, at least with my short sale team. So I've got a really good short sale team that I have working for me that are just absolutely terrific. And in all the short sales that we've done, we've only had just a couple where they wouldn't waive the deficiencies. It's very uncommon, but it is a little bit more common where the bank will say, based on your income and your financial reasons for selling this property, what we'll do is require that you come to the table with, let's say, $10,000 or something like that, where at least it shows that the customer has some skin in the game. Yeah. And that may occur. But on the other end, there's times where the bank will say, thank you for processing the sale as a short sale. We're going to authorize that we're going to give you, the homeowner, $10,000 to help you move. So the opposite can happen where the bank doesn't just forgive the deficiency. They also say, here's some extra money that we're going to give you for, facilitating this process and for you, leaving the property to help you with your moving expenses. Right. So that kind of stuff can happen as well. So it is a bit of a wild west. Most of the time, there's no deficiency, though. So that most of the time, they waive the deficiency. I will raise one other issue, though, that is something homeowners need to be careful about. The amount of deficiency that's waived is a forgiven debt. And just like any other debt that's forgiven, it's like credit card debt or anything else, if you negotiate debt, it's considered income by the government. So that money that's forgiven, in our example, again, that $50,000 deficiency that's forgiven, the homeowner after the closing would get a 1099 for that $50,000. And it's also reported to the government, to the IRS. They have to report that $50,000 as income on their tax return and pay taxes on it, which is obviously going to be way less than the $50,000, but it's still going to be a hardship. And so if we have a significant short sale where there's $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 worth of debt being forgiven, that may mean that there's $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 worth of tax liability that's being added to their bottom line. There has been some legislation in recent years that allows that debt to be forgiven and not be taxable, but that's federal legislation, and that changes from year to year. So there's no guarantee that that will continue to still be forgiven debt, so that there wouldn't be any tax implications. But right now, under the law, for the most part, that debt is wiped out and there is no tax issue. But that doesn't mean that that's going to be that way in the future, or it's that way for everybody.
Right. And so when someone is considering a short sale, they really need to understand all of the options on the table and to be able to make an intelligent decision, because it could, as you stated, it could still be a financial obligation in the end, if the banks choose to make that an issue, if that's what I'm understanding, correct?
Yes, 100%. Okay. 100%. So I think that the trick here is to get your professionals involved in the decision. Your broker who's experienced with short sales, your attorney, and maybe even a financial professional like a CPA or somebody else that you work with. That's the team that you want around you to decide whether or not this is a good option. And I don't even think most people even think that short sales are an option or even know what a short sale is. I think that people get in these desperate and difficult situations, where they can't afford to pay their mortgage and they have to move, they have to get out of the house, and they're not sure what to do. And they're not even aware that this is a potential issue. And it's up to good brokers like yourself to advise people, hey, there's an option here that's going to allow you to leave your house with dignity and with your debt being forgiven, potentially anyway. And that's why it's such a good option for people.
Right. And we're going to take a little break, and we're going to, when we come back, we're going to talk about discussing just the options, as you stated, that a lot of people don't really know that there are that short sale is an option that may be the best course for them. And so when we come back, we're going to talk about that a little more in detail. Okay?
Thanks.
All right.
I am stuck in the middle. Yeah, I'm stuck in between. I'm stuck in the position. I'm just a machine. So you're stuck in the middle, huh? I guess we're stuck in between. Life is a riddle, yeah. And I don't know what it means, no. This is what it feels like. But you're not alone, 'cause I'm just like you. Let's share out and hitchhike. There is nothing we can't do. Ooh, baby, as long as I got you. I'm gonna open up my eyes this time. Open my heart and do it with a smile. I'm gonna love, 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 love. Give me your love, 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 love. You're stuck in the middle. Yeah, you're stuck in between. Things can only get better if you know what I mean. Once in the air, you realize what you want, the things that you dream of, and the things that you don't know. This is what it feels like. But you're not alone, 'cause I'm just like you. Let's share out and hitchhike. There is nothing we can't do. Ooh, baby, as long as I got you. I'm gonna open up my eyes this time. Open my heart and do it with a smile. I'm gonna love, 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 love. Give me your love, 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 love. I'm gonna open up my eyes this time. Open my heart and do it with a smile. I'm gonna love, 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 love. Give me your love, 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 love.
So we're back, and we really talked about short sales as being a option that a lot of people do not know that they have. And as I alluded to earlier, it may be the only option, but Jeffrey, is when, let's say, a client comes to you, do you and your staff, which I want to stress, a very good staff, and how important it
Thank
is
you.
to be able to have some efficiencies in this process, and we're going to talk about why. But when someone comes to you and they're interested in doing a short sale or just don't have any questions about it, what is just take me through as simple as you can the process. Do you automatically assume that a short sale is their best option, or do you look at, well, you look at different scenarios and then have the client to decide once you put everything on the table?
That's a great question. So yes, I am very particular about making sure that the client understands what all of their options are. And so, I ask them, why do you want to do a short sale? What is the purpose behind what you're doing? Because if somebody calls me and says, hey, I want to do a short sale for my house, I don't think that most people really understand what a short sale is. And I need to gauge what really their best option is. And ultimately, it's their decision. I talk to them about their other options, which would be, going through the foreclosure process if they can't pay their bills, doing something called a deed in lieu of foreclosure, which is where you negotiate an exit with your lender by just signing over your deed and just vacating the property. Or bankruptcy is another option, or really just doing nothing and just continuing to stay, or maybe trying to find the cash to be able to get out of the deal. I had a client who called me just the other day with the same kind of question. His broker had talked to him about doing a short sale, and I explained to him, that based on our conversation about when he told me what his income was and what his issues were, that perhaps it wasn't the best idea. He was only $8,000 sort of upside down, wow. And I said to him, wow, for $8,000, you're better off trying to find, even if you can find a short-term loan or get a family or friend to give you the $8,000 to be able to close and bring that money to closing would be so much better, because a short sale is going to ruin your credit. It's going to stain your credit, for a really long time and affect your ability to borrow more money, whether it's to take, student loans or a credit card or to purchase another house or buy a car. And, for $8,000, you don't want to go through that kind of pain.
Right.
Whereas, there may be better options for you. And so I had a very long discussion with the client. I think I spoke with him for about an hour. And ultimately, after thinking about it and doing some research, he decided that he wanted to go through a short sale anyway. And then after he's informed and he knows what to do, where he knows what the consequences of perhaps, going down that path are, I'm happy to do that. But I have a very much, I guess what you'd call sort of a come to God moment discussion with the clients, where I want to make sure that they really understand, because I think that there's some unethical brokers that are out there that really push people to do short sales. Yeah. They prey on people who are going through foreclosures or, they're going through financial stress, and maybe a short sale is not the right option for them.
Right. And I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm glad you brought that point out, because there are bad people in all professions.
100%.
They're not necessarily, and I'm not, we're not pointing fingers at anyone, but there are just people out there that are not necessarily, that don't necessarily have their client's best interests at heart. They're looking at their dollars and their, what they need to make, and it's not always the best choice for the client. So it is important that you choose your attorney wisely, you choose your real estate person wisely, you choose any other entity that needs to come into play to make that right decision for you. So I'm glad you brought that point out. But I do have a question though. In your opinion, you mentioned that a short sale does affect your credit, and it does. Is that typically 2 years, or is it longer?
No, it's much longer. It stays on your credit until it falls off. I think most forgiven, it looks like a forgiven debt on your credit. So it's the same as if you negotiated credit card debt at a less than what you owe. I believe it stays in your credit for 7 or 8 years before it falls off. And so it's just a negative, blemish on your credit report. Now, listen, if you're already in a situation where, let's say, you can't afford to pay your mortgage, so you have unpaid mortgage payments, your credit's already going to be decimated regardless, right? Wow. So, at that point, this is the better of, it may be the better choice. But if the gentleman that I was speaking with hadn't missed any payments, he had actually gone through what they call forbearance, which is allowed now by these mortgage lenders due to COVID.
Right.
So forbearance is where you're just not making payments, but you're not missing payments. The mortgage company has agreed to hold the payments temporarily for 90 days or longer, while people are having these income issues. So he hadn't actually missed a payment yet, so his credit had not been negatively impacted.
Okay.
So that was a really good position to say, listen, before you go down this path, this is where you're going to be. Because a bank very, very, very rarely, and I'm saying very rarely, will approve a short sale if you're current on your mortgage payments.
Yeah.
From a bank's perspective, they really, for them to agree to forgive this debt, you have to be typically in very dire financial straits.
Mm-hmm.
And being current on your mortgage doesn't seem to show that you're in financial straits. So at that point, whether if your mortgage is going to be impacted by not paying your mortgage or going through the foreclosure process or going through a short sale process, I think a short sale is better than a foreclosure. I think in all of my years of doing this, I've only had one or two where people were still current and they agreed on a short sale. And it was where somebody had to move out of town for their work and they didn't have any other choice.
Yeah.
But most of the time, their credit's going to be very negatively impacted, regardless, by the time they get to me. And so then it's not so much of an issue.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned COVID, and of course, that's the elephant in the room that many people are dealing with right now. One of the things that you're hearing quite a bit on the news is that landlords are going to be in a position where they're either going to have to foreclose or in a short sale position. So is it true? And I'm not saying that it is, that landlords, are they in position if they need to do a short sale, because of their
yes,
a little differently, obviously, than an owner occupied.
Yes. So banks, we can still do a short sale if it's an investment property. And the banks look at them a little bit differently. And the banks are much less likely to agree to waive the
deficiency.
The deficiency, yeah. But it still does happen. And so, yes, we represent people who own investment property all the time. Most of the time, again, we're able to still get the deficiencies waived, but it's less likely. It's scary because, these tenants, they have a lot of uncertainty. They don't know what's going to happen. But right now, this is happening all over. Landlords are having no other choice, because they can't afford to pay their mortgage because obviously the tenants are not paying rents. And it's really frightening. It's sort of a domino effect. And what happens is if a property is sold by a landlord in a short sale, the leases themselves are not affected. The leases will transfer with the property. And so if you're in the midst of, let's say, a 1-year lease and the landlord goes through a short sale, your lease will not be impacted. It continues for the rest of its term. However, if it goes through a foreclosure, by act of court, when a property is foreclosed on, those leases don't necessarily continue forward. And after the foreclosure is completed, typically the tenants only have 90 days before they have to vacate the property.
Yeah, so that we potentially could be heading into a big mess if I don't know, if something just doesn't come in the midst of trying to maybe be a bridge. I can see that because of course I don't have a crystal ball and neither do I want to have one. But if a lot of these tenants aren't able to find opportunity somewhere else, what other case do we end up? But at least, landlords do understand just by what you presented that they can come to you and talk about the possibility of a short sale and sit down and see what options are available to them.
100%. And you know what? I obviously I don't have a crystal ball either, but I think that we had some of these issues come up during the mortgage foreclosure crisis, in around 2008, 2009. And typically, it's resolved through government intervention. So once there becomes such a large problem that's affecting such a large, segment of the population, usually we hope that there's going to be some government intervention. And what happened last time was that, people, these landlords were able to, in essence, reform their mortgage. So the mortgage companies were given incentive to work with these people and to change the terms of these agreements, or perhaps to, as these properties lost value, to take, to lower the amount that was owed, and forgive some debt. And so I think that that's likely going to have to occur. I just talked briefly about this forbearance issue. Right now, everybody who has a mortgage is entitled to some level of, a government-backed mortgage is entitled to some level of forbearance if they can't afford to make their payments due to COVID. And what's going to happen is when those forbearances run out, there's going to be a reckoning, because these people may not be able to pay their mortgage payments. And each bank is treating these forbearances different. Some are requiring that the money's paid back. It's my understanding anyway. As soon as the forbearance period is over. Some are tacking it on to the end of the mortgage. Some are just increasing the payment slightly. When you come out of this thing, it's not like all of a sudden, boom, magic, everything's ready to go. Right. The economy is ready. I think it's going to be more problems before it gets better. So hopefully there'll be some intervention. But, again, there's going to be a certain segment of the population that's just going to say, you know what, I don't even want government intervention. Now's the time for me. I have to move. I have to leave. I'm changing jobs. I'm changing careers. I'm leaving Illinois. I want to go to Arizona. I want to go to Florida. I want to go to Texas. I want to go somewhere else. Right. Maybe it's time to retire. I'm throwing in the towel. And a short sale is their only option. They have to sell their house, in essence, is really their only option. And so a short sale in that situation is a really, really good option. And that's what we're going to be here to help people with.
Right. Well, we're gonna take our break again. And when we come back, we're just going to talk about how people can get in touch with your office and work with your highly efficient team. Donna, she was my first connection, and it seems as if when I talked to her, we were like friends. And I think I talked to her for about 20 minutes, and I'm like, I just met her, and we're just having such a great conversation. But when we come back, we're going to talk about how to connect with you.
Fantastic. Thanks.
All right.
Thought I was losing who I call myself today. In this world of illusions, didn't dare to sing my name. That was when you came along, and I don't know where I would be or where I'll go if you weren't standing next to me. Your arms have carried me for miles. Here's where I belong. Life can be unfair. I just couldn't handle it. Still smell the bitter taste of misery and unfaith. I just need to love you like I do, 'cause I don't know where I would be or where I'll go if you weren't standing next to me. Your arms have carried me for miles. Here's where I belong. I've been running away from now and everything I've seen, recalling the things I won't remembering. Remembering a feel, I can't deny it. Just wanna hide it and let it go away. But you have shown me that I can be free and face the world again. And I don't know where I would be or where I'll go if you weren't standing Your love will carry me for life, and I don't know where I would be or where I'll go if you weren't steady next to me. Your arms have carried me for miles. Here's where I belong. Here's where I belong. Here's where I belong.
Okay, so we're back. You know, Jeffrey, the information that you just laid out there for us today is so needed, and I thank you for providing that information. And tell us, how can someone touch base with you and talk to you about, discuss with you the possibilities of short sale or anything that's relating to someone who may be in a distress situation?
Well, anyone who needs to contact me in regards to a real estate matter, and again, I'm a real estate attorney. That's all I do is practice in real estate law. Should call me directly, and my phone number is 312-208-7340, and that number is me directly. I'll give it to you again. It's 312-208-7340. One of the funny things about me is I don't have an office number because I'm never in the office. I'm always at people's real estate closings. So when you call that number, you reach this, okay? And that's important to me. I do have an office number that you can reach my staff at. That's 312-750-1212. And then you can reach any of my paralegal team. And, I have Brittany, who's one of my full-time paralegals, Kim, one of my full-time paralegals. I have Lori, I have Valerie, and I have Donna Pacini, who's my short sale negotiator. And I have her lovely husband who also does this. And so you can reach any of us, but start by calling me. And I may not pick up. I may be in a closing or something else, but leave me a message. My voicemail also gives the direct phone numbers for every single member of my team. So if I'm not available and you need to reach out to one of the other members of my team, their phone numbers will be on my voicemail. But if you leave me a message, I promise I will call you back. Maybe later in the evening, and maybe 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at the end of the day, but I promise you'll get a call back from me. And again, that number is 312-208-7340.
Yeah, and it more than likely will be late because I just my experience with you, it's I would get your text late at night, but
yes.
But let's talk though. If someone has decided to go forward with the short sale, time is truly of the essence.
Yes.
What that means, I'll let you explain what that is.
So if you call me and you say, "Hey, Jeff, I want to do a short sale. I'm ready to sell my house." And I'm like, "Great." And then you say, "And by the way, the judgment went through last month and my house is going up for auction tomorrow." I'm going to say, "Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, but I'm sorry. Unfortunately, you're at a point where I can no longer help you."
Let me say, that is not funny because, in a serious sort of way, because unfortunately, people do put their head in the sand and pretend that these things are not happening. And then when they do finally decide to move forward, it's often too late.
It's the sad truth of it. And, at that point, they're going through a foreclosure and, they may have a judgment that is against them, for, what they owe the bank, that will follow them for, up to 20 years. So that's not a good situation. It's not at all. So in those situations, listen, if you're having financial difficulty and, you're starting to get notices from the lender in the mail, that you're pre-foreclosure, or they've perhaps even filed a foreclosure against you, the clock is ticking. And normally, from that point going forward, you have about 9 months. Now because the courts have been shut down, it's the timeframes are going to be different. But normally, it's about 9 months. From the filing of a foreclosure to when the sale occurs, the auction. So really, you need to contact a seasoned real estate professional like Dawn or a member of her team, who at that point understands the situation, can list your house for a reasonable amount. Because listen, if you go out and you just find some broker out there who doesn't understand short sales and they overlist your house, they list your house for more, you're never going to get an offer. And if you're trying to pursue this and you list your house for too much money and you never get an offer, you're just going to get foreclosed on. And what was the point? Right. So you need to find somebody who's experienced in this and understands the situation and can price your house, based on its the situation, and understands the market, and that therefore will be able to get offers in. And once we get an offer, we go right to the bank and we start negotiating. Right. And at that point, again, like I mentioned, it's like applying for a mortgage in advance. You're unapplying for your loan. So it's not so much that you're just saying, hey, broker, you take this over. I need to, handle other things. We're going to need the client's full cooperation immediately to get us all the documents we're going to need: tax returns, financial documents, bank documents, hardship letters, all of those things we're going to need. And we're going to need the client to really be in lockstep with us and working together, all of us, myself, my staff, the client, the real estate broker, all of us working together as a team to push this thing forward. And we're all hitting it as hard as we can to try to get the lender to approve this thing. And if everybody's doing it, we're all doing it in lockstep and we're all working together, we can get this thing approved sometimes in 30 to 60 days. Right. If we have situations where maybe the client's just not cooperating, they're not giving us the documents, they're not returning our phone calls, and they just piecemeal stuff into us, it could take 6 months or even longer, or never. Sometimes they don't get approved because the client just doesn't give us the tax return that we've been asking for. So, we're there. We're going to work as hard as we can, and we need the client to cooperate. And we need the client to make sure that they make the right choices, so that they have the right broker involved as well, the real estate agent, so that that they understand what's going on. We can get the right kind of offer in, and then once that offer comes in, we can all work together to get this offer approved.
Right, and I just want to overemphasize too, as you said, it's important that people find a firm such as yours that understands the process, because attorneys are busy. I mean, you guys are just busy. And if you don't have a team of people that are doing the follow-up call, that are making sure documents are presented and submitted correctly, then banks are dealing with stacks and stacks of information. So if yours is not following the process, what do you think they're going to do with that particular file? They're going to put it on.
Right, so right on the bottom. Right.
They're going to, in the bottom. And if you're not doing your job, then the end result is not going to be very positive. So I thank you. I thank you so very much for coming on. And I know it's much more. And I'm just going to have you back again to talk about some other good things as it relates to real estate. But I truly thank you for your time. And please give your number again. Do you have a website that people can go on, or is the best way for people to reach you is by phone?
They can reach me by phone. It is, again, 312-208-7340. Again, 312-208-7340. I have several websites. One of them is bussepc.com. That's B as in boy, U as in up, S as in Sam, S as in Sam, E as in exit, P as in Paul, C as in Charlie.com. And this is probably a story for another time. I have another website. It's thelouboutinlawyer.com. I have a bit of a reputation for wearing Louboutin shoes to the closings. And so I decided to embrace it and buy the website. So yes, that's me as well.
Yeah, and I was also reading too your former life. Were you a did I read you were into compute? You were what was it? I think I read
I
you
used
were
to, so I've been an attorney since 2006. And before that, I used to design and produce video games.
yeah,
So, and I made games for Disney, and for other companies, for like Nintendo systems, for Sony, for PlayStation, for Xbox. So yeah, that was my life, and I decided, I've had enough fun in my life. Now I needed to punish myself by being an attorney. So I decided to go to law school, and now I'm an attorney. But yes, I used to be a designer and a producer in the video game industry for years. It was a really fun job, and I'm still very close with a lot of people there in that industry.
Oh well, cool. I'm that's the fun side of you. I guess that's the side that I mean, I don't want to say, but attorneys can sometimes be a little stuffy, but I do not get that from you. And
I hope not.
no,
Yes, I like to have fun and joke
I mean,
around.
I mean, because you guys are seriously taking care of things. So, but
We can do that and joke at the same time.
well,
So
that's
yes.
that's a good attitude to have.
Yes.
And again, I thank you. And if anyone is interested in reaching me, of course, you can reach me at Asaga, that's ASAGA Realty.com. Again, repeating, Asaga Realty.com. So thank you, Jeffrey. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your intellectual information that you shared with my audience. And I'm going to have you back again.
Well, thank you, Don. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Everybody be safe out there.
Be safe. Be safe.